Hey, what's up, squad? From Reach Suite, I'm Colin Smith, and you're listening to Cold Ones. It's the podcast with chilly questions and even colder ice cream. And today, we're joined by my dear friend, Adam Tesan. You know him as the Chief Revenue Officer at Payrix, former CRO of Chargebee, and your favorite flip-flop wearing, beach bumming San Diego local. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. 7:45 PST. We're getting started here, guys, and we got ice cream on the way. Show us what we're working with, Adam. What we got?
On the ice cream side, I think you were kind enough to get some Tillamook French vanilla.
Yeah.
I think there is a Canadian connotation here. I suppose it's better than poutine flavored ice cream at
Yeah.
7 p.m.
Yeah.
And then I think the other one was this one looks a little bit more appetizing, the
Yep.
Pacific Coast pistachio.
We'll jump into that one in the second half. So we always pick a specific ice cream for our guest. And I was thinking about how when you and I first met, I thought that you were from like the Southeast. Like I thought you were like a Georgia guy or something. I don't know why. Just probably because we were having some beers together, having a ton of fun. You're like, oh, I'm from Canada. And so I believe Canada has some French influence. I said, I got to get out of the French vanilla, man.
The wrong coast, but we'll forgive you. I'm on the Vancouver side, but there is a bilingual national flavor to Canada for sure.
And you're from Vancouver, Canada.
That's right.
I've heard it's beautiful. Home with Seth
It's
Rogen as well. Adam Tesan and Seth Rogen.
Yeah, amazing. You know, when you get the best of both worlds, you've got beaches and mountains coming right out of the ocean. It's a pretty spectacular place.
Cool. Would you say it's kind of like a bigger Seattle?
You know, same kind of northwest, same kind of northwest vibe. Be a little biased, I would suggest that, Vancouver is the better of the two. It's pretty.
I've heard that. People
Yeah,
say that in Seattle. People are like, hey, look, like Vancouver's sick.
Yeah, I mean, like just the multicultural aspect of Canada, and then the downtown core of Vancouver is right on a peninsula, and I think that the condo and people living downtown density is second to only like New York.
Really? Okay, so it's got that really fast moving, fast paced.
Great, vibrant downtown. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to go, man. I have not been to Vancouver. I'm disappointed in myself. We'll make the trip.
You'll have to go now.
All right, so first half of the Cold Ones podcast is always personal. It's kind of opening up the hood and sharing with the audience a little bit. Who is Adam, right? Like folks know you as the CRO of Payrix and the former CRO of Chargebee. You've had this spectacular career, but oftentimes LinkedIn doesn't give a sneak peek into who the real person is. And so we put together just some random little fun questions. You good for that?
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Fire away.
All right. All right. Biggest fear, man. What comes to your mind as the biggest fear?
Biggest fear. First one is losing, and then I think the second would be anything happening to the family.
Yeah. Oh, the losing one is interesting. I feel like a lot of successful people have a deep, I'm going to use a dramatic word, insecurity of losing or looking like an ass in front of people, or like fucking up, honestly.
I think, well, I mean, nobody likes looking like an ass, but I think the more, my take on it is more just the competitiveness, like whatever, we're playing a game of pool, a game of darts, or, whatever it is, doesn't matter. If it's the sales game and hitting numbers, I think just that losing kind of hurts.
Yeah. And that's probably what's driven you in a way to be who you are, I'd imagine. First one.
It helps.
All right, funniest celebrity encounter.
It's a good question. There was a couple. One of them was more funny because I missed it. My wife bumped into Paul McCartney, and I'd left her because she was going into all these shops I didn't want to go into. So I wasn't really there, and I was really annoyed when I got back that she'd bumped into Paul McCartney, and this was in Chester in the UK. But more recently, I was actually flying up to San Francisco, and I was sitting next to this big guy. This was just after COVID, so everyone's wearing masks, and it was really hard to tell kind of who was who. And the flight attendants, the pilots, making a big fuss about this guy. I'm sitting next to him, I'm like, who's this guy? He's got a big mask on. And it's short flight, 45 minutes up to San Fran. He was kind of like built, engaged in his work. I was doing a bunch of work, and he stood up, and then they all started there like, oh, Mr. Vice President. And they're taking, it was Al Gore that I was sitting next to on the plane for 45 minutes. They're all taking pictures with him when we land, and the security came and walked him off. I mean, he was flying commercial, which is, I suppose, one indicator of kind of where he is. But yeah, I couldn't believe I sat next to him the whole time. Didn't realize who he was. I blamed him out.
That's pretty, that's pretty funny, man. That's a good story. I don't tell this story on the show, but I've got some really interesting celebrity encounters in the airports that I'll tell you over a beer, but there's one that's just insane. All right. Most recent, we can go in this direction two ways, just like a fun random one. Most recent clothing purchase or most recent purchase over $250?
I think they go together. So
Okay. Well, hey, depends on how big you're balling, Adam.
yeah, sorry. So I think most recent clothes purchases that kind of fit the over 250 bracket. I bought 2 Barber shirts and another pair of Santoni trainers.
The San Antonios are comfortable.
Yeah, they're nice.
And Barber shirts. I know the Barber jackets. Enlighten me. What are the Barber shirts?
Yeah, I'm wearing one right now. So they,
Okay.
yeah, they kicked off with their Barber jackets, which were, super cool. I actually have a Barber jacket. I don't actually like their style of them, but yeah, they come up with a whole line of men's shirts that are, yeah, they're pretty cool.
I like it. I like it. It looks like it has a little bit of like a vintagey look, but still like
That's right.
hip colorway, hip. Okay.
I don't know about the hip side, but whatever. They're comfortable.
One of my buddies got the Barber coat, and he was like, "Dude, this jacket is the biggest pain in the ass because you have to re-wax it like on
Oh, do you? I didn't know
once
that.
a month, man. Like I could get behind re-waxing it like every year. He's like having to re-wax it on a monthly basis, taking it into the store. It's like, dude, this is
That's far too much, man.
like having a pet. All right, well, Adam, you survived the personal round. That was fun. All right, so transitioning from personal into professional, this is really where I'm excited to tap in. There's some really unique portions of your career and your success that I think our audience is really excited to hear about. And I'm excited to tap in and get your thoughts on it. Before we do, though, we're going to transition to the second ice cream.
All right.
And this is the Pacific Coast pistachio. Less fun, less ridiculous than the French vanilla. But dude, I know you're living in San Diego, living your best life, hitting the PA, well, not PA, hitting the US 1, in the flip-flops.
Right outside my window.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I got you the Pacific Coast pistachio, man, because when I think of Southern California, I think of Ryan Sheckler, the skateboarder, and then AT, the sophomore singing.
Very different characters. Yeah, one's far more skilled than the other. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he couldn't climb the stride. All right, man. So first question. Also, you can eat the ice cream if you want to. I know it's a little early for you, but if you want to eat it, we encourage you to.
I'm gonna have a taste of the pistachio one. I can't remember the last time I had an ice cream at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I'll give it a work.
Probably when you were preparing for like soccer practice when you were 6 years old or something.
Yeah, that's right.
How is it?
That's pretty tasty.
Pretty good?
Yeah. Very good for breakfast. Most nutritious breakfast I've had all week.
Breakfast of champions, man.
Okay.
So through your time at Chargebee and Payrix, I know, well, especially at Chargebee, I understand that you've implemented some pretty inbound heavy machines. And so as someone like myself and a lot of our audience who has really been in mid-market enterprise for most of their career, I'm curious to tap into your brain of the Chargebee success, of the inbound velocity-based sales machine success, and just hear a little bit about how did you manage this differently? Let's just start with how did you construct that? How did you architect it? Tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because we're stepping into WorldPay. Payrix, we're at the outside. We're probably a year and a half into the journey of building this kind of technology process and system for inbounding and just modern GTM motions, which is great. And fortunate to have some talented marketing colleagues. Brittany, Kristen, and Sam are amazing, and then you need a really strong RevOps organization. Daniela, Brennan, Andreas to help stand this up. So we're in the motion of doing that right now. It's kind of fun to build it up from the ground up. At Chargebee, when I stepped in there, so I started with them in 2020 and January 2020, and I was fortunate when I stepped in there that they'd already created this incredible demand gen engine. At that point, they built the whole business on an inbound motion, which was fascinating. One of the attractions to the job, quite frankly, was this incredible engine that they built. Vikram and Jermaine had spent the time from a sales and marketing perspective, kind of building this machine up, and the creativity and velocity of content that's needed to keep that machine running is crazy. And then the other side of that is the instrumentation that you need on your top of funnel metrics is critical. I mean, we were daily and weekly continuously optimizing and experimenting. Every day we'd be looking at every conversion metric in the funnel. We had at that time it's probably increased from them, but we had about 1,000 MQLs coming in a month. So we're looking at contribution channels on the digital side, continuously optimizing that spend. I mean, there's a lot of art combined with science that go into building that machine.
So it is the inbound digital advertising motion is one that is far more complex than my brain can handle. But it's one that when it's done well, and I think you have to really resource for it. You have to believe in it.
100%.
You can't half-ass it because a lot of it is it's just so much discipline, like you said, in the content. How much content do you think you're pumping out?
I mean, you can see it today. I mean, they're still at it, whether it's like they're all over LinkedIn, there's multiple posts a day coming on LinkedIn, Facebook. I mean, it really, depending on the type of business that you're in is going to dictate that kind of digital channel, and so as you start growing and going up market, those channels change. But, there was our marketing team was probably 30, 40 strong. Half of them were just, focused on digital content, and it was a continuous stream every day.
Wow. So we're talking LinkedIn content every day. Blogs, probably taking pieces of that.
Facebook, you've got digital ads being pushed up into, onto sites and publications where, the audience is hanging out. Yeah. I mean, it's just a continuous, and it's daily. You got to be pushing something out daily. Yeah.
So walk me through because the motion of how a sales rep handles a high velocity SMB commercial inbound lead versus like a mid-market enterprise outbound lead is totally different. Walk me through that first like tranche or first like 50%, because I think it probably then is like negotiation legal. That first 50% of the motion once an inbound hit.
Yeah, I mean, you go all the way up to the top of the funnel. When you think about the metrics that you're measuring, it starts all the way from kind of websites into MQLs to discos to SALs. So, the way you construct your technology stack for one, and then your teams, like you need SDRs in real time, working around the clock, being able to catch these leads, especially if you're running global, right? So all of a sudden, like our SDR team ran shifts that covered, basically followed the sun, so we could cover North America, Europe, and APAC. And so that time to first contact. So I think if you start at the very top, we knew almost like clockwork that our website traffic converted at 10% to MQLs, our MQLs converted at 14% to discos, and our discos converted to SALs at 70%. I mean, it was like clockwork. And you watch those metrics, and anytime anyone's shifting, you were always trying to optimize and figure out how to get at it. And then that time to first contact. So once you go from an MQL to a disco, that disco is scheduled, using Calendly and all these great tools that are happening. So you can real time schedule that disco. That disco converts at 70% to SLA. So your time to first contact from when your MQL comes in to getting into an SDR, really important, right? Like we were looking at metrics that were sub 30 minutes that somebody would get on the phone with that person. And then your time to first contact, or when you set up a discovery call with the AE, the SLA going in is also another, key metric point of time to first contract. And then that's when you get into the sales funnel, deal created, and then you just manage your stage conversions from there.
So that's intense. That's a lot. So you're measuring website to MQL. MQL is hand raiser, right? In this case.
Yeah, MQL's hand raiser. Like I just filled out a form, right?
By the way, out of your leads, what percent would you say at Chargebee were inbound MQLs versus outbound SQLs?
So when I got there, it was 100% inbound.
Okay.
And we didn't there was no outbound motion at Chargebee when I started. Yeah.
Did you bring that to Chargebee?
Yeah. So part of the project brief when we started working with them, kind of public stats, we were about a 300 person company. We're processing about $3 billion, that was going over the platform. And, what they'd done, which was incredible. I think they started the company in 2011. So I got to them in 2020, those first 4 or 5 years, getting to $1 million is really hard. You're going through 6 periods now, right? And you start scaling, but yeah, they built a whole engine had been built from a sales and marketing perspective inbound. Everybody was in India. I think they had 6 people in the US, combination of a couple of sales folks and some product folks. And so the project brief, when I got there, like any company, right? Like if you're going to start to scale, you're going to have to introduce new GTM motions, whether it's, you're going from inbound, you got to augment with outbound, you got to go channel, right? You're not moving from one to the other, you're augmenting and including them all. So, I think that was probably one of the lessons learned when we were going through this, introducing this motion. You got to be careful that the pendulum swings. Everyone's like, oh, we're doing all outbound now. It's like, hang on a second. You got to keep that inbound channel going and continuing to grow.
The lights on.
Use this new one, right? Yeah.
Well, I think Adam, actually, to be fair, it sounds like people really believed in bringing, what you had to offer, because everyone's like, let's go outbound. A lot of times, we're just speaking with John Itel, the CRO demand based, formerly the GM for GM for Americas for Canva.
Yeah.
Direct to consumer, he brought in the enterprise. And oftentimes what you'll hear in our conversation is people are pushing back, like, whoa, it's worked this way. Why are we doing this way? So I'm glad to hear people are like, let's go with Adam. He knows.
Well, I mean, if you think about the growth trajectories and scale that you're getting, and if you're growing at 100% year over year, like we were, at some point, that one engine is going to not be able to fulfill all those growth, aspirations that you have as a business, and you've got to augment with different channels. Like you're going to expand vertically, you're going to expand geographically, you're going to change GTM, or you're going to augment GTM motions that are coming in. If you're outbound, you're going to add inbound, or you're going to add, channel, depending on which kind of direction you're going in the market, up or down, right?
Yeah. So let me bring back to you get them. Okay, you get the hand raiser. You're discoing them. So you're saying you're getting on the disco within 30 minutes. That was the goal, or you're saying that was like the SLA?
Yeah. So the no the that MQL hand raiser, there was a 30-minute clock that one of our SDRs would jump on the phone with that prospect and do a high level discovery. Right?
Okay, so that was within 30 minutes was the goal.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay, so they're doing high level discovery. Is that basically like just a qualification in or out?
Yeah, you're a qualification. Yeah, you're going through. You're talking about kind of high level. What are you trying to do? What type of business are you? Kind of where you're trying to get to, and just doing high level qual. And then the next handoff is to an account executive to do a proper discovery.
Did you have disco calls running 24 hours? No, sorry. You had disco calls running 24 hours. Did you have AE demo calls running 24 hours?
Yeah. So because we were fortunate to have built a lot of our infrastructure on the inbound side in India. And so we'd run shifts from our SDRs would run shifts. We had inside sales teams that would run North American hours, inside sales teams that would run European hours, inside sales reps that would run APAC hours. And then as we started adding in the outbound motion, we started building teams in market. So then you had kind of dual coverage from an inside and outside outbound perspective. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot, man. That's really impressive. How something that I think is a unique skill, definitely takes a lot of honing and practice. It's probably unique to every business. But how would you coach, or how would your teams coach these reps on qualification in or out really quick? Because when you have like a high velocity, high volume, it really is a misstep to bring in bad fit leads to the funnel, because it takes away from potentially a good fit lead when you're operating at that scale. How would do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, you'll hear this all the time, and I think it's relevant to most motions, right? But your ICP, good definition of your ICP is going to be critical, right? And that's got to be lockstep across the whole business. Everybody agrees: product, sales, marketing, services. This is what an ICP looks like, and it starts at the marketing side, right? You're going to go out, like, where are you going to go find these ideal customer profiles? Starts there. So we were always looking at, like, how many leads were getting DQ'd from just at the MQL stage, because we DQ MQLs if they didn't fit the ICP. So as you go down, you start dispositioning those leads. So where you're going to go find those leads from a marketing perspective, which ones are generating the most ICPs that aren't getting DQ'd, and then when you get into discovery, having a really well defined ICP allows you to do qualification pretty quickly at the front end. The other side, and we're doing this today here at WorldPay, we were constantly going back, going, what do really successful customers look like, to inform that ICP, right? Like, that should always be revised. Like, these customers activate, get time to value way quicker than everybody else, have more success. That should continuously inform your ICP. So continuously doing that analysis. And then, quite frankly, you need, I'm a big fan of methodologies. And most methodologies, like, we're implementing gap selling right now. WorldPay, we implemented it at Chargebee. Like, there's a huge focus in that particular methodology on doing great discovery and qualification. So you're giving them the tools to do that.
All right, last question on this, and then we're going to jump into some final items here. Is going from SMB mid market enterprise, that's something you've done in your career. What are the pitfalls? How did you do it successfully? What are some hard scar lessons that you've learned moving up market?
Yeah. So, the critical element is you got to be in lockstep organizationally across the board in all functions, right? Like, this is not just hey, sales has decided they're going up market. Like, there's a whole different, we used to think about the market in three segments and 3 geos, right, at Chargebee, because we were really global. So we had if you think you had we used to host startup, scale up, and enterprise were our 3 segments. Now we created our own definition based on our product capabilities of where that customer was in their life cycle journey. Like, we were focusing on a lot of high growth companies. So, when we would start contract with them, they may be doing 10 million, and then, they're, triple digit growth organization. They're going to be in a couple of years, they're going to be, up into the 50, and then they're going for 100 million. So we always thought about it in those kind of our definition of the 3 segments, what those revenue bands were. And then we looked at those segments and said, okay, what are their goals, strategies, tech stack? What are they trying to do? And so our products would, meet those needs. And as you're going up market, then, product would be like, okay, well, I know what a company, is trying to go from 10 million to 25 million. Like, they're going through a whole transition internally, right? They're probably using HubSpot, they're probably using QuickBooks. And then all of a sudden, as they go to 15, 25 million, we knew that they were going to start transitioning. You're going to start implementing NetSuite. You're probably going to start looking at Salesforce. Your tech stack demands on that business as it grows changes. So we would look from a product perspective to say, okay, and then if the other part of that is like a business gets to 100 million, they're thinking about IPOing. So they're thinking about compliance, governance, the type of reporting that they need to do. So what your product needs to do is very different across those segments. So, the thing that we were good at was sales and product were really good, and we let product lead the way. Product, you tell us when you're ready to take that next step up, and we can resegment and start going after the next segment, and that's how you kind of step up going up market with product. Two things that we didn't do really well that we found out: we stretched the supply lines on the services and support side of things. So implementing a $100 million business versus implementing a $7 million business are very different motions, required very different skill sets, and so we were a little behind on that side, and this is where that whole organization getting aligned needs to get there. And then, we talked a lot about the sales and marketing inbound and outbound motion.
ICP.
Awesome to build on top of that great inbound demand gen. As you start going up market, the type of content that you're pushing out to, who you're pushing it out to, and how you're pushing it out to from a marketing perspective changes pretty drastically. And now you're getting into an outbound motion. And so we actually underestimated, I think, some of the changes that we needed to make in the marketing motions that we needed to implement, the type of assets, the content that we would need to produce that would speak to a CFO of a $100 million company that's not hanging out on Facebook, right? Like that's not where they are, versus a $7 million CEO founder that's probably across all those different digital channels and expecting a little bit of a different type of message to them, right?
Dude, 100%. And I like that you brought up the implementation support, because I think we always our mind stops at deal close. We forget that there's a whole 90% of the customer's lifecycle actually occurs after the signature of the PO, right?
Yeah.
And so resourcing properly the implementation, the customer success, the support functionality, right? What kind of support are you going to have?
I mean, you got to take into consideration that whole customer journey, right? Like the marketing and sales and that first contract close is just the very beginning of that journey. They go through implementation. They're going to get handed off to your customer success team. Like you got to map out that whole customer journey and figure out all those touch points, transition points, and making sure that each of those functions is set up properly to take those type of customers on.
I'd be curious, you had a huge SMB mid-market team at that point that you decided to go up market. How did you know, if at all, that SMB AE was skilled or ready to go up market in their career? What kind of things were you looking for? Or was that something where you're like, no, we hired separately for that?
We did both. We did both. We did this at the Active Network. I got a line of business that was, again, doing, average deal sizes were like 15,000. The business was probably doing about 15 to 20 million in ARR at that point. We took that thing up to like 90 to 100 million. Same team, and just expanded that team. And then, I 2 years into that journey, the same rep that was doing, $15,000 deals with a $250,000 quota was, begging me for a $2 million quota because they were starting to do $250,000, $500,000 deals, and knew, you know what I mean? So from a rep perspective, we do both. I'm a huge fan of kind of developing folks internally. I love the SDR model gives you a feeding pool for your AEs. The inside AEs are good feeding pools. So, I think you look at those reps and, some hallmarks is like, we could see a lot of like our startup segment, which is the smallest segment. Like we'd watch some of the reps and they'd be like blowing up the ACV. They'd be selling deals that were like 5 times larger than anybody else, because they were really good doing discovery, bringing everything that we had to bear into that deal and really selling on value. So their ACVs were like 3 times, 5 times everybody else's. That's a first good indicator. It's really hard to move from an inbound motion to an outbound motion. So like a lot of the reps that were doing inbound were naturally actually going out and doing some prospecting anyways, because they were thinking, hey, I know I'm going to go do that. So you can see some of the behaviors starting. And then, the other big piece is like how do they quarterback the resources of the business and bring them around the opportunities and leverage the power of the whole organization, which helps them drive that full ACV thing. So you can see some hallmarks early on in reps that are showing the right behaviors that are going to be able to make the transition.
I remember when at my last company, Viz, I was promoting some of my team members into more of a upper mid-market role. I mean, it's healthcare, so everything's enterprise, right? Everything's literally enterprise. What we call upper mid-market is bigger companies than most companies in SaaS sell to. But the thing that I was looking for was executive presence. How did they get on a call? And I'm a pretty casual guy. I mess around a lot, but I think, knock on wood, I believe that when I'm in front of someone that I need to have executive presence, I need to manage the call accordingly. I can really speak that language and have the right tone and tenor. And it's a natural thing. And I was watching for that a lot with my sales reps who got on kind of sloppy and like, hey, what's up? How y'all doing? Good to see y'all versus who showed up was like, hey, thanks for your time today. We've got an agenda laid out. I want to talk to you a little bit about the purpose of today's conversation. It's just different. I
Yeah.
felt it differently, right? That was
Yeah, that's actually a great call out, and ones that understand, I can't remember what, I think it was out of Keenan's gap selling book. Like today, there's like 6.8 buyers involved in a sale. So, to your point, that executive presence, can they show up and hold their own, be prepared, and, present the business and themselves in the right way at the executive level. But then are they going across, and can they hold the conversation not only with a CEO, a CPO, and a CFO? Like, are they that chameleon that can adjust to those different buyer personas? Because as you get into these, you start going up market and getting into bigger deals, as playing in that space, right? Like you got to talk to like 5 to 7 different buyers over different functions that have very different needs, and you've got to be able to turn and talk in the finance language, talk the stories and numbers to the finance person, turn around and talk to product and how that customer experience looks. Yeah,
more of the I think business acumen across the systems of a business, right? Just having talking about roadmap with product, right?
yeah.
Talking about P&Ls of finance and knowing that not everyone knows that. And I think there's some good development you can do. All right, last question here. And then we're peeling off. I'm grateful for your time, Adam. When we think about, your career, when we think about your success at Payrix, at Chargebee, and all that organization before that, I think a lot of it's a team sport, right? And I think there's a lot of support roles, and I really enjoy this part of the conversation. Actually, I think there's a lot of support roles that don't always get the love and the external love. So who comes to mind? You mentioned some folks earlier, but I want to make sure you get an opportunity to shout out who are some AEs, SCRs, RevOps, demand gen leaders, inbound, whoever you want that you feel like made an oversized impact in your career and your success.
Say could turn into a really nasty question. I feel it's got connotations of a really long Oscars acceptance speech where you're frightened to death of leaving anybody out, just because you're absolutely right. Like it's a 100% team sport. You think about all that machinery and handoffs and the customer journey and the amount of touch points that happen across the business. Yeah, I'm almost frightened to answer the question, but I think I mentioned a little earlier, one of the things I was fortunate enough at Chargebee was stepping into, a business that had already built some pretty incredible machinery. And like I said, that was one of the really attractive parts of the job. Vikram, who was heading up marketing, Jermaine, who was heading up sales there, had actually built the foundations and the machinery that was allowing this business to scale. We had some just incredible people, and I'm not going to be able to name them all. Like there was a great solutions consultant, Ravi Sharma, that we had. He ended up moving into a sales manager role. Asis, who was on the solutions consultant, like based out of India, really helped us scale up, ended up moving to the US. You can't do all this, I mentioned, without the RevOps support. Saranya on the RevOps. We had Elia, solutions consultant, that was incredible. And these reps that we talked about, like stepping up and moving with the growth of the company. We had, Sid was amazing. There was a rep, Michael Smink, still there, one of the badass sellers that Chargebee's got. Sam Quirk, Brett Spenner was another, great rep that was, incredibly successful, moved into sales management. That was on the Chargebee side. There's 1,000 other, CJ was amazing in helping us manage that whole inbound machinery. It's just so many people. And then, WorldPay, same. Incredible. We deal, we're providing an embedded payments and finance solution into software platforms to help them monetize payments and finance tools within their own experience. So it's pretty complicated what we're doing. And, solutions consultants that we have, Ella, that heads up that team's incredible. Dan Arata, just a badass. We're dealing with a payment facilitator right now that's incredibly complicated. The money movement, bank accounts, we've got solutions consultants across the globe working on solving for this. And Dan's in there on the technical side, incredible reps and managers, Alex Stone, Curtis, Andrew Davis. I'm actually really one of the guys we're working with. He heads up our enterprise team, so manages the enterprise team, but also manages a bunch of deals with Brett Pinnicky. He's probably one of the best enterprise Dragon Slayer reps I've ever worked with. And the SDR team, Alex is just building that. We just hired 4 SDRs, so the jury's out on how that motion starts kicking in for us.
Congrats. Yeah, I know it's one of those things. I've had a few folks who've gotten on there, like, oh my gosh, I have too many to name.
Yeah.
But I think
so I'm going to apologize for everybody that I missed, because there's so many people involved in.
We don't have time. We just don't have time. We'd be here all day, right?
Yeah.
Well, Adam, as always, man, I appreciate you. If you feel comfortable, what's going on in your neck of the woods over the next year? What do you want to share with the audience about, your world?
Yeah, so WorldPay, like I said, we've got some pretty exciting product launches coming on. WorldPay bought Payrix because they were leading the charge on, embedding payments into software platforms to allow them to better monetize these platforms, create a better experience for customers. The product launch that's coming out of the gate here in the next few weeks with us is all about that embedded finance solution. So allowing people to start consuming, loans, banking services, issuing cards within the software platform, and really, enabling these software platforms to become this financial hub for their customers. So I think that's pretty exciting. The All Blacks are playing Fiji in rugby here in San Diego this summer, so saves me a flight across the pond to go watch a rugby union game, which I'm pretty stoked about. And then my son Kai's we sent him off to college in the UK, so he'll be popping back for the summer, which should be fun.
Oh, that'll be great, man. Well, good luck with the product launch. Embedded payments sounds very valuable, especially because it's probably gonna be white labeled and you're not having to, change.
100% white labeled, exactly.
Totally seamless, right? Enjoy the All Blacks game, and I'll see you soon, my man.
Will do. Hey, Colin, really appreciate it. Thanks for the ice cream and the chat.